Hi, and welcome to the Devon webinar. Something a bit different for this webinar. It's going to be all about ESG and responsible investing. And we're very fortunate to have Alice Jones, the Devon ESG analyst. Hi there, Alice. How are you going?
Good, thank you. Thanks.
Great to have you along.
Yeah.
Well, look, let's get straight into it. ESG, I suppose, is a topic familiar to many, but for those not in the know, how do you see it? What's it all about?
Yeah, so at its most basic level, ESG just stands for environmental, social, and governance, and is essentially almost an extra form of analysis that investors like ourselves will do on a company to address, what could be either a material risk to the company or a material opportunity. And so at Devon, we think about it in kind of two ways. So we do a lot of monitoring work with the companies that we already hold, and the ESG factors that we monitor generally relate to decarbonisation, safety and cybersecurity, and then of course governance just at a board and executive level. So we do a lot of monitoring work in that space, and then also looking at the ways in which sustainability themes might lend themselves to investment opportunities. If we're thinking about what a 100% renewable energy world looks like, what companies are going to benefit from the transition and the result,
right?
As an example.
Excellent. Okay. And then, so how would you characterise our approach? I mean, you've already sort of touched on it a little bit, but
yeah. So we, I guess first and foremost, Devon, we focus a lot on an engagement approach with the companies that we own, as opposed to an exclusionary approach. We do have exclusions across a couple of the funds, one of them being the sustainability fund. But in general, all the monitoring work that I talked about, we do for every company that we hold, regardless of the fund or strategy. And so, we're heavily focused on decarbonisation. Probably one of the bigger projects that I do is monitoring scope 1, 2 and 3 targets for all our companies, and then modelling out what we expect their emissions to be over the coming, up until 2050, based on nationally determined targets, net zero by 2050, but also the company's set targets in terms of where they want to be at whether it be 2025 or 2030. And then so based on our modelling, we then track as companies continue to report their emissions, whether they're in line with our expectations or not. And so where they're not, or where companies haven't made targets or they haven't commented on them recently, then we can engage with companies as necessary. In terms of social issues, we monitor that on more of a qualitative basis. We do controversy screening monthly on all our portfolio holdings.
Right.
But that uses MSCI, our third-party data provider, but that's usually backwards looking, right? The controversy's already happened, and then we're seeing it later on. So in response to that, we try and monitor, whether it's news reports, policy, company reports, anything that's coming out about the companies that we own, we monitor that frequently in order to kind of address issues as they arise. Another kind of key theme under the social banner is safety and cybersecurity. Cybersecurity specifically for the companies that hold really highly sensitive information rather than them all. And then safety, again, for companies that, it's relevant. There's no point in measuring it for all the companies. So we try and focus our energy on a few of them and, like I said, engage when necessary. Governance, we have pretty good relationships with most of the boards and executive teams across the New Zealand market, and the companies that we hold, and really good access in Australia as well to their executive teams. So we're in quite a fortunate position that, if there's any issues that we want to address in terms of governance, that can usually be done face to face. And then in addition to that, I suppose we also have proxy voting, and we vote on every single proxy, again, regardless of the fund or strategy, which can be used as a signal of almost our approval or disapproval. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, obviously a lot of rigor in that approach. Now, it is a dynamic landscape, isn't it?
Sure is.
It's changed a lot from, say, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and even the last 12 months. What are the main themes you've seen emerging in 2023?
It's been an interesting year, I would say. I think a lot of the themes that we're seeing kind of highly talked about at the moment are almost just a more sophisticated conversation from what has been happening in years prior. So, for example, around, I've mentioned cybersecurity a couple times. That kind of got pushed into the spotlight last year when Medibank had a privacy breach or a cybersecurity breach, and the privacy, the data from their customers was, sent out into the internet universe, and a massive privacy breach for the customers themselves, and also has a major material impact on the share price of the company. And so, in the last year or so, more conversations are happening around cybersecurity, and it's almost shifted from, in the past we've thought about all the data that we can collect on customers, the more the better, we can use it for marketing and growth and sales and whatever else. But now it's much more selective and, focused on the storage of the data and how much do you actually need to keep. And, it's all about keeping your customers' data secure. In addition to that, I would say another development this year in particular would be around biodiversity, given the task force on nature related financial disclosures. So they developed disclosure recommendations and guidance for organisations to report and act on evolving nature-related dependencies, impacts, risks and opportunities, which has kind of shifted the way that we think about climate and climate risk in isolation to biodiversity. And they're actually the kind of twin challenges that we need to address together. And then also just changing the way we think about how, companies are so reliant on the natural environment for their operations, and yet what damage are they causing to the natural environment? So much more to come, and like you said, forever evolving, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Very dynamic.
Yeah.
And look, actually, speaking of dynamicism and changes, there's been a number of initiatives that Devon's brought in. We've had the annual sustainability report, the inaugural one, with quarterly sustainability reports. I mean, what are we trying to achieve here?
I suppose in general, just more transparency. The annual sustainability report is good in terms of giving an overview of how we think about sustainability at our firm level, across our investments, and then also across the kind of specifically sustainability focused funds that we have. And there's various insights that we provide within that report. And then the quarterly report that we provide is a lot more data focused, I would say, in terms of, we publish quarterly ESG metrics for the sustainability targeted funds, whether that's carbon intensity or the MSCI ratings that we use frequently to kind of address, the quality of the companies that we're holding. And the sectors which contribute or disproportionately contribute the most to our carbon intensity for each of the portfolios. It does vary slightly depending on which fund, just due to data constraints. But and then in addition to that, we also provide in the quarterly report updates on the engagements that we have. Like I said, that's a big focus for us at Devon, so it makes sense that we then share the results of those engagements with retail investors. And so, yeah, it's an important part of our RI approach. And so it's, yeah, good to give frequent updates, I suppose.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, great initiative. And look, yeah, just on the subject of initiatives and recognition, we've had recognition from Mindful Money a couple of times over the past year, but more recently, there's been recognition from RIA. So maybe just explain who is RIA and what recognition have we received?
Good question. So RIA is the Responsible Investment Association for Australasia, and it's essentially the biggest network of investors committed to responsible investing, whether that be from an environmental, social, economic and governance perspective. And I think off the top of my head, they represent about $29 trillion in assets under management. So it's a huge network, and they provide a ton of resources for the responsible investment community, if you will. And then annually, every year, they bring out a benchmark study on the responsible investment landscape for both Australia and New Zealand, separate reports. And it's essentially the most comprehensive review of the responsible investment industry at that time. And they'll survey, fund managers like ourselves on what practices we're implementing, and then, provide a detailed report into what they're seeing. So yeah, for the third year in a row, we were very proud to be named a responsible investment leader in the space, which is quite a huge achievement, I think, especially this year, because they've, as the responsible investment industry does get more sophisticated in the conversations we're having and, more further along, the bar also raises on what it means to be a responsible investor. And so the benchmark that they set did change, and it got tougher. And obviously we've still got there. So yeah, we're really proud of that result.
Yeah, that is great news, and affirmation of Devon's commitment to ESG. Well, thanks for your time, Alice.
No problem.
Great to have you explain all about what Devon's doing in terms of responsible investing. We'll leave it there. We'll let you get on with your day. But thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you've got any questions about ESG, about anything we've discussed today, our approach to responsible investing, or perhaps even about the Devon Sustainability Fund, or indeed the Global Sustainability Fund or our Impact Fund, and the recently launched Green and Sustainable Bond Fund, do drop me a line. Just reply to that morning note, or indeed give us a call here at the office. But we'll leave it there. Have a great day, and we'll catch you again soon.